still remember it to this day. $3,500 a month he was paying for consulting, just for me to teach him 1 hour a week what I knew on Instagram. The most amount of money I've ever made in my life at the time. It's like, he's like, oh, how much you charge me? I'm like, $3,500. He's like, okay. I'm like, that was my first high ticket sale, right?
I've talked to you about it, but why is Spanish working so well right now?
So
and why should everyone go learn Spanish? Because I keep hearing about this.
No, nobody should learn Spanish. Number one, do not come into my market. That's number one. Like, give me 3 years. let me be a billionaire first. But the reason I think why that is because the market is blue. It's like completely blue. It's like there's no competition. It's like 2016, 2017. For English, that's what Spanish is right now. They have the money, they want the knowledge, they want to learn, they want to do something, and it's working really, really well. So, and then like traffic is just like a lot cheaper. And then for whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm is just easier in Spanish.
Josue, when you immigrated to the United States around 2015, talk about how much money you were making as a full-time engineer.
Electrical engineer. $350 a month in Dominican Republic, working in the Caribbean sun for like 8 to 10 hours a day.
So is that in USD or
in
what?
USD. Dominican pesos was like 11,000 pesos, something like that.
So when you're living there, how were you able to even come over to the States? Was it a bunch of paperwork? Did your parents come over here? How was that whole process?
So I came here with a student visa. My parents helped with the whole entire process. And I went to Indiana, Lafayette, Indiana, out of all places. My neighbors was a fat cow, a pig, a cornfield, and a fat girl. So it was bad.
I remember the Indiana days. Did your parents get to come with you, or was it just you?
No, my parents came. So my dad got a job in a church. So my dad is a pastor. My dad got a job in a church in Indiana.
Okay, that's why you're religious too.
Yeah.
I didn't know your dad was a pastor.
No?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't know. So my dad is essentially a pastor, just different religion.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
So my dad got a job in a church in Indiana called Faith. And he and my mom migrated, and then I came afterwards. So that's how it went.
Okay, and so then when you came over here, since you're on a student visa, what was the goal of the student visa? Were you still working as an engineer and now you were going to get a job, or what was the plan?
So my plan was to get out of Dominican Republic, no matter means. Like, that was my plan.
I liked it when I went there, though. It seems nice, but well, what's the proper term now? You don't say third world because people get all upset, right?
Yeah, well, it's third world. It's like no matter how you slice it, it's like we're in Miami. We don't have what I'm looking at right now. Like, that's the reality.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get out of the Dominican Republic, not because like, yes, the environment and economy or whatever, but mainly because I wanted to become a professional soccer player. And I knew that I was not going to be able to make it in DR at all.
Oh, wow. So that was the main reason.
That was the main reason. So 2013, I started social media, this entire journey. It's been 10 years, 11 years now of me being on YouTube and on Instagram, doing videos and doing all this stuff. And I wanted to become a professional soccer player. And that was my goal and my dream and my purpose. I worked my butt off. I broke both of my ankles, my knee, my teeth I've been through hell and back playing soccer, and I kept going. And I moved to United States thinking, okay, I need to get out of here because I'm never going to be able to make it to the pros living in Dominican Republic. I need to go to the United States. And that was the easiest path, was the student visa.
So coming to the United States, you're speaking about soccer or football for most people, right? Yeah. Why not go to Europe where it's stronger?
So I just didn't have the means of the stuff necessary. So it was just harder. So
okay, and so you took football as far as you could. Injuries probably eventually stopped you, from what it sounds like. I had kind of a similar experience.
Not really. So yes and no. Injuries, because I'm like a very, very stubborn. Well, you know me. Like, I'm very stubborn. So, and what actually stopped me, I did get an injury, which was the stupidest, smallest injury of all the injuries that I've had, and I broke the left toe of the toe of my left foot. That's what I broke. Alone. Running alone. Yeah. It was the stupidest injury ever. I broke it alone. I actually have it on video. It's like the funniest thing. But I broke it, and then that was 2016. At the time, I was growing my social media. I learned Instagram. I was in this Facebook group from Founder where I met you, and I was there. I was like growing Instagram accounts and stuff like that. I grew my following, and then I broke my toe, and I dedicated the time that I was going to be playing to marketing and learning business and learning Instagram algorithm and like all these other stuff. That was 2016. And then when I came back to soccer, what happened was I got this client. It was Tim, September 13th, 2016. Still remember it to this day. $3,500 a month he was paying for consulting just for me to teach him 1 hour a week what I knew on Instagram. The most amount of money I've ever made in my life at the time.
But
right?
you don't tell him that, of course. It's totally
Yeah. I was like, it was just chill. He's like, oh, how much you charge me? I'm like, $3,500. He's like, okay. I'm like, that was my first high ticket sale, right? So, and then what happened was I took that money and I'm like, okay, I can either go all in into this thing that is starting to work. People started to like recognize me, etc., or I can keep doing this soccer thing. And by the time that was 2016, I got the United States 2015. I've been doing it like for a year and a half. And I was playing semi-pro. I was traveling all over the country. I was not getting paid. I was making no money. The people that I saw that were playing pro, because I played against the pros, had a very shitty life. They all lived together in a little shitty house, right? So in Minnesota, in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, okay, like my life, I'm never going to be Messi or Ronaldo. Probably, maybe not, but like the chances are it's not going to happen. So I'm just going to dedicate my time to business instead of soccer. So that's when I made the transition in 2016.
Yeah, for me, looking back, I'm glad about all the lessons I learned, but I wished if I had taken that time and put it into business, I can't even imagine how much more money I would have made or how much farther I'd be. So you finally go into business and then you start doing Instagram, right? Talk about how you found your first mentor, how you got started in that.
Yeah. So it's actually funny. So I lied to my parents. That's how I found my first mentor. So I was studying in college, right? And my dad has always been of the mindset of like, your education in college is super important and I'm going to pay for it, but you have to get good grades.
Right.
So what I told him, and he knows this by now, well, I told him, hey, listen, this course is part of the curriculum, right? So I told it was a fun course. It was a $1,500.
So he paid for it.
Yeah, it was it was $1,500 or $2,000 for this course that taught people how to do Instagram and whatnot. I lied to them. That's the reality.
How much was it?
It was like $1,500 to $2,000.
That was probably a lot for him. Was that a lot for him at the time?
Yeah. So I lied to him. Afterwards, I paid him back, right? Tenfold. But that's how I started. That's how I started my journey. I'm like, okay, if he thinks my education is super important, but he's only focused on this college BS that's teaching me nothing, this thing I actually know is going to get me at least moving forward. Right. So this is actually education. This is BS. So this is part of my education. So whatever.
So you take that course and then you learn. What was the big thing you learned in there? Was it shout outs? Was it content? Was it a mixture?
So it was just a mixture of everything. I think more than anything, it just opened my mind to the possibility. Right. So I don't remember, you were in the course too, right? That's where we met. Yeah. But I remember like it was a lot of follow for follow. That was like the main strategy that was taught. It's like follow for follow at the time worked. And I started doing that, started working, but then it stopped working. And then I remember saying like crap.
And when you say follow for follow, just for everyone listening, it's to grow the account. That was
Correct.
like one of the strategies in the beginning to grow the account.
Grow the Instagram. It's like, hey, like I just find a bunch of people to follow on Instagram. I hit follow on each one and then I unfollow the next day, so on and so forth. So that was the main strategy. Now, what happened was the software I was using got banned from Instagram and that stopped working. I'm like, crap, I just spent my father's money on this thing. I need to make this thing work, like no matter what. And then
were you selling something at that time?
No, I was selling nothing.
So what was the thought process of growing your following without having something to sell?
Again, going back to the soccer.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
To get a pro contract. So my idea was I'm going to grow my social media as big as possible to hopefully get a sponsor, attention, a contract, and then be able to make it happen.
Wow.
Funny enough, fast forward in 2016, I think it was like July or August, I was injured. An agency contacts me and says, hey, we're seeing like what you're doing on social. We want to use it as a case study. And we're going to place you in like Minnesota United and like Columbus Crew and like Indianapolis, Indy 11.
Are these US based teams as
well?
Yeah,
US based, pro US based teams that they were going to give me the chance to be a part
MLS.
of. MLS and NCLA, something like that. Like there's two pro leagues. I don't remember the second one. So they were going to give me the chance to be in the tryouts and be part of the team, etc. because of my social media. So the plan kind of worked. But then at the time I said no because I was injured and then I started doing the business stuff, etc. So going back to my dad, I stopped working, like the whole strategy with the course stopped working. And then I had to pivot to hashtags. So at the time I realized that whenever I use a hashtag, I just get a spike in traffic for no reason. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to research which hashtags to use. And I just like figure it out the right balance. And then I just started doing that and like just accounts just took off. And then engagement groups, power likes, and like all these other stuff. And then shout outs started happening. And it was just like snowball little by little. And then I took that strategy into the digital marketing world. And I think I was the first one. I want to say I was the first one in like the ClickFunnels internet marketing space that did this entire thing. And that's how things took off. So
I don't know how much you can share. So if you can't answer this, you can't. But what I noticed is that I got into shout outs. And for everyone listening, a shout out is where you're just paying an account to post you and tag you. And hopefully you get some of those followers. Correct. You can sell them stuff. So to me, when I started figuring out power likes and all these other things, it seemed like it was this underground group of people who knew all these pages. And essentially, would you consider yourself the middleman who had the contacts and people would pay you, and then you'd keep a fee and then put the rest towards the pages, right?
Correct.
So how did that all come about? Do you even know? How did that all start?
My mistake. So what happened was this Tim guy pays me in September 13th, 2016. And then I go to Vegas and I meet Jason Stone, Millionaire Mentor. I was like super excited. And I get like all these other clients, and then they say, hey, listen, like I want to grow my account. I'm like, okay, I can do it for you. And I had the strategy nailed down already because at the time I had an account with like 300,000 followers, another account with like 2 million followers, and like several like theme pages.
That you'd grown through those strategies.
Correct, exactly. And then what ended up happening then is obviously I have all these connections in Telegram, and it was Kick at the time as well.
Yeah,
and then there was a software called, I don't want to say Instagrass, maybe Instagrass, I don't know.
I think that was it, Instagrass. I think I remember that. Yeah.
So there was like all these like little hidden loopholes that you had to go through in order to like do these Instagram stuff. And I just had the connections to everybody, or most people, right? And then I would just go to somebody like you. It's like, hey, listen, like I can grow your account completely for free. More than happy to help you, yada, 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 right? And then what ended up happening is I grew it organically because I was very good at that. And then there came a point that you had to spend money on shout outs, right? And then I'm like, hey, listen, like if you want to grow more, this is going to be, this is what the strategy looks like. I was like very transparent with the client.
So was there a time where you could get shout outs for free?
So yeah.
People would just post you for free. Why?
No, I was getting shout outs for free.
Oh God, okay.
Because my leverage with other pages, I was like, hey, listen, post this person, and I'm gonna post you on my account, and that's what I did, because I had leverage.
And then eventually they said, hey, I want money.
Yeah, but eventually you burn that account, you need more pages, and so on and so forth, and eventually you need money. Okay. But so I was just leveraging my own traffic and influence on different pages that I had, to get free shout outs on different pages.
Wow.
So that's what I was doing. And then, I was the middleman between the people who provided the shout outs, a lot of them, and then the actual client. Okay. Because I was in the ClickFunnels little internet marketing world. Okay. And in that world, I learned obviously sales, I learned marketing, I learned copywriting, direct response, webinars, all these other things. And I just combined everything into one like system, if you will. And then just things took off in 2018.
Okay. Wow. And so you start essentially selling this as a service, where it's basically a done for you service. The question I have is, I've done a ton of shout outs, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, probably millions of dollars on shout outs over the years. And what I noticed, at least two things that I noticed, is one, they worked a lot better back in the day. So when I say back in the day, 2017, 18, 19, 20, pretty much I'd say up till about 2 years ago. And then two, at least to me, it seemed no matter who I used for shout outs, whether it was a middleman or someone else, or I tried it on my own, that it almost seemed I would always make a ton of money, because if let's say I spent 25 grand and I got 13,000 followers and I sell a few of them, I make my return. Yeah. But it seemed whenever I would do it that you would almost get real people, but then you'd also get maybe bots or spam. And it obviously would depend on the person, but it almost felt that way to me. Do you find that accurate, or what was your experience with that?
So funny enough, by the way, the person that actually ran, because I know them all, like the person who ran your shoutouts was actually one of my students in the course that I had on Instagram. Shit. Yeah. Wow. So again, it goes back to me being one of the first person or the pioneer in our industry for Instagram marketing.
So how did people get into that? Was it a network and then people just bought into the network, or how did they get into the network?
I had a course, right? I had a course that taught people how to do these things. Okay. And then part of that course was access to the network. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it was your network to start?
Yeah, I built it. I had like all the Telegram groups, all the stuff, like in a massive spreadsheet. Yeah.
So whenever that would happen, do you think that was more my imagination, or was it a mix? Because I'm assuming they can't control all the quality.
Yeah, you can't.
But were some people you think it was a fact some people would send real with fake, or what do you think it is?
So it depends on who it is. Obviously, we know a lot of people. I'm not going to say names, but it's like some people like did send Brazilian followers only to like give away stuff. It was like
So like the loot
bullshit.
giveaways and stuff.
That's not a good idea, period. But on the shout out side, some people will mix it with fake stuff. What I've seen is that it all comes down to the creative itself. So
the content.
The content.
Right? Everyone always says that.
Correct. So like, let me give you an example. A real example. In 2018, I go to Vegas with a good mutual friend, Kevin, and like his little mastermind.
Yeah.
And we run into this, and like, mind you, we're drunk and like walking around Vegas, right? And
sounds accurate.
Yeah, sounds accurate. And then we run into this rapper. His name is Dylan. Okay. And he's the kid is like 15, 16 at the time. He's freestyling on the street. Okay. He's like, I'm like drunk, like I'm like barely understanding this guy. I'm like, oh my God, this is the next Eminem. That's what I thought, like immediately on my head.
I was about to ask you, is he a white guy with the name Dylan?
Yeah. And then I'm like, hey, listen, like rap, and I want you to say my name is Josue, and I want you to say Instagram, and like I give him like a couple of keywords, and he does it, and I film it. I take it back home, and then I know the owner of @rap. @rap is the biggest rap page on Instagram, right? With hip hop and stuff like that. Today's even bigger than back then. Back then it had like 1 million or 2 million followers. Today I have like 8, 10 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I go to him. I'm like, hey, listen, how much is a shout out? He's like $300 at the time, right? I'm like, I like the Dylan guy. I want to help him. I'm like, I'm going to put you on rap. I pay my money. I pay the guy that I know. That's the owner of @rap. I take the creative that I filmed and put it on that page. Okay. He grew 10,000 followers in 24 hours.
Wow.
Right? Now, it was all the creative. It had a banner, whatever. And what's funny, I'll give you the story. It says 16-year-old, instead of saying rapper with 2 P's, it only had 1 P. Right? So if anyone is saying it says raper. So it says 16-year-old raper freestyles.
Oh, gosh.
And then the comment section went
crazy.
Ham, and the video went viral.
Yeah.
And then he grew 10,000 followers in 24 hours. From then he went on TV, not on The Voice, but like something similar.
Wow.
It's like twice he was there. And like it just blew up. Blew up completely.
So that's not his page blew up, his personal page.
He had like 5,000 followers at the time.
Wow.
He grew like 15,000 followers. Today he like 3 months later he was like at 150,000 followers.
Wow.
And like he's still a good friend. Like we're still in contact from that one thing. But the point of the story is the creative. Yeah. You're paying $300 anyways for the shout out. Yeah. You're paying whatever money for the shout out regardless. You're paying for the placement. Now the content itself is what's going to determine if people like it or don't like it. And then when they land on your page, the page is going to determine if they stick or don't stick. So that's the problem that most people see with shout outs, why they don't convert. They're doing that at scale, right? Which is obviously what you want. But then the content itself is just like copy and paste, like just very little effort, very little stuff.
So do you think, let's say someone has an account, let's say they've done shout outs in the past, they have an account, they have a lot of followers, but their engagement's really low and they're blaming that. Do you still follow that same standard where that doesn't really matter, your content sucks, make better content, you're gonna be fine?
For the most part. Sometimes like some accounts are like very impossible to like recoup, and then it's just better to start from zero. But for the most part, yes. Even today, I think that we have tools that make it a little bit easier to grow, like boosting post. You can, if you have 100 followers and you want to grow your account and do it in a profitable way, spend $10 a day on ads.
Right.
It's like boost a post, spend $10 a day.
Yeah. I mean, right now we actually have a post, because we do this with a lot of our, beginner clients, and they have we have a post right now. We're getting $1.75 a follow, which is crazy. Because if I'm getting, that's less than $2 a lead to me, and then they get in my retargeting my ads, that's super beneficial. So we're actually running that right now. Okay. So this is what you essentially did. The company you started, I believe, is Online CEOs, right? I actually got mad about that because when I was going to start my company, that is actually what I liked, because it was so specific. And I said, shoot, if I can't use Online CEOs, then I did Elite CEOs.
I know, I remember.
I think I said that to you. I was like, man, I wish I had your name. So
I started actually with digital CEOs.
And you switched it.
And then somebody had the trademark on that thing. So we were using it, and then I switched to Online CEOs.
Yeah, Online CEOs, I thought it was super brilliant. So you did that for how many years?
So I did that until actually last year.
Last year. And then just so you just pivoted to what you're doing now, right?
Right. I just pivoted the branding itself from Online CEOs to digital entrepreneur. So, because like in Spanish, you can't translate Online CEOs.
But are you doing any English now, or is it fully Spanish?
We're doing both. We're doing both English and Spanish.
Okay, so lead gen for both, etc. Okay, so what's working better right now? Is it the English or the Spanish?
Spanish. Like hands down.
Okay, so close. why is, I mean, I've talked to you about it, but why is Spanish working so well right now?
So
why should everyone go learn Spanish? Because I keep hearing about this. I'm
no,
jealous.
nobody should learn Spanish. Number one, do not come into my market. That's number one. Like, give me 3 years. let me be a billionaire first. But the reason I think why that is because the market is blue. It's like completely blue. It's like there is no competition. Number one, people not gotten as screwed over as in English.
Right.
The
So it's like, would you say it's similar to 2017, 18, like for English?
Yeah, correct. It's like 2016, 2017 for English. That's what Spanish is right now. They have the money, right? They want the knowledge. They want to learn. They want to do something. They have the credit cards. We're only targeting Spanish in the United States, not in Latin America.
Yeah.
Obviously, we live in Miami, which is the capital of like
Spanish,
both English and Spanish in the United States. And it's working really, really well. So, and then like traffic is just like a lot cheaper. And then for whatever reason, like just that YouTube algorithm is just easier in Spanish. I don't even know.
Yeah. So what you started recently, digital entrepreneur, right? And then in Spanish, I forget how you say
Emprendedor digital.
Perfect. And then the way you're driving traffic to your offers now is strictly, it's the YouTube podcast, right?
Yep.
And then are you doing Spotify, Apple, and things
Well,
like that?
what we are actually, I don't even know the data there. I need to know the data, but I don't even know the data.
Wow.
It's literally YouTube. That's it.
But why don't you know the data? Can you not look it up? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't actually looked it up. My team is just like takes it, posts it, and my focus is 100% on YouTube.
Okay. So if someone comes into your program now, you said you stopped online CEOs and now it's digital entrepreneur. Is it the same type of content or did you change the content of what you're teaching?
It's for the most part the same type of content, but it's mainly focused around the CRM that we also built, or my business partner built. Okay, I should say, which is called Drizio. I've never seen a CRM like that. Most CRMs have like columns. Right. It's not like that. So the sales process is different as well. Most sales scripts, and there's like outlines and like you mix and match. Here's like, no, it's like literally word for word scripts. So the dynamic changed a little bit. The concept itself has not. So we're doing the same thing, but in a better way.
Okay, so if I were to work with you now, you're still going to teach me how to grow. Is it social media? So it's still social media based. Yep. You have the CRM, and the CRM they built, was it completely from scratch?
Completely from scratch.
Wow, completely from scratch.
Yeah. And it has like an affiliate commission engine, payment processor integrated, LMS as well. Like everything is like into one single thing. And it's different than Go High Level because I've used Go High Level as well. Go High Level actually uses a code that's called Lead Connector. Right. You like white labeling a bunch of vendors and putting everything together. Yeah. The person who built this thing, his name is Anthony Powell, and Peter is his programmer. And they're like in the 13th generation. They come from like network marketing, MLM world. So like they've done that. And then I'm like transitioning and bringing it into this world.
Okay. And then what was the main reason that you changed branding? Was there anything specific?
So the reason was because we wanted a name that I can easily translate both English and Spanish. So there's no way that you can translate online SEO to Spanish. Like I tried, trust me, I tried very, very hard and it does not work.
Meaning what? When you say you can't
people don't know what a CEO is.
Really?
Yeah. You can like, CEO, huh?
Oh, no way. Yeah. I would never have guessed that.
Yeah. So it's like whenever like, and I'm like on TV and Univision and Telemundo, I'm like doing all these things. And like whenever you say something, it has to be easily rememberable. It's like, it needs to be like something like, that it clicks. Right. CEO en línea is not it. It's like online CEO in Spanish is not it. So, yeah, that was one of the main reasons why we just switched completely. And so.
Okay, so you've been in business, what, 6 years, 7 years now, 8 years?
Since 2016.
So, okay, so yeah, about 7 years. Yeah, 8 years. Okay, so yeah, I can't remember. Like 6 years, 5. I can count, I promise. So you've been in business about 8 years, and then the main way you're driving traffic now is through the podcast. What's your strategy for that? Because I think people find it interesting. Because you went 0 to, it's almost at 55,000 or so.
Yeah.
Right now, is the Instagram even bigger, or where's that?
Instagram is like 180 right now.
So if someone is coming in, they don't know anything about content. Maybe explain how you choose your guests, what types of questions you ask, because I think you've had a really unique take on it. Obviously, it's in Spanish too, but at the end of the day, I think your mindset and strategy around it is really working. So maybe just talk about that.
Let me tell you this. I'm going to do the same thing in English. And it's going to take longer to crush it, but I'm going to crush it in English too. We're going to do the exact same strategy in English, and you'll see it.
Well, it seems like it's working. That's why I think maybe breaking down how you think about it.
Yeah. So one, I would say, is the people that we bring on the podcast itself, obviously, are experts, right? It's like they need to be good at something.
Are you more concerned if they're an expert or how big their following is, or both?
It depends on if they're a client or not.
Okay.
If they're not a client, Their following needs to be big. If they are a client, I don't care.
So right now you actually bring people on who are your clients, and part of what you sell them on is they'll be on the podcast.
Correct. Because like basically it's like,
Wow.
yeah, because like I'm injecting
Which is
traffic.
a great selling point, because
Yeah.
I can't imagine if I had 1 million followers, someone goes, oh, wow, yeah, I'll pay you and then I'll be on the podcast. And that's part of the deal.
And then like it's immediately is immediate ROI for the client.
100%, because they get free traffic.
Correct. Exactly. Just to give you an example, one client, he sells an e-com course. It was Alejandro. He's done close to $700,000 in sales since December 1st. Out of those $700,000 in sales, $450,000 of that came directly from my podcast.
Wow. You're kidding me.
Yeah. And the person closing those deals is my dad. The one
Wait, your dad's closing the deals right now?
Yeah. The one that I stole the $1,500 to.
That's absolutely baller. Because I like when you can do that if it works
yeah.
out, because then you're helping your family, but
Correct.
they're actually contributing.
Yeah,
That makes sense. You're not just handing it out.
Yeah. So the strategy that we're doing right now is, one is in the questions that I ask, how I ask the questions, I frame them always to give a very good, concise answer that can be used for shorts. So let's just say, for example, you were an Airbnb coach. I'll be like, hey, Tanner, what would you say are the 3 things that I need to do in order to make $10,000 a month on Airbnb?
Right. So you really frame the questions.
I frame the questions correctly. So I know this because I'm building the offer, right? So I'm building the systems and strategy and like all the marketing material. So I know this because of that. And the entire podcast, I'm like trying to extract your story from you and then frame questions around it that make it very enticing to keep going. And the day I learned that I was very good at this was when I interviewed this guy from the Dominican Republic that literally nobody knows, has no social media, nothing, zero, zip. But he runs a $200 million real estate company in Dominican Republic.
Wow.
Nobody knows him. And I interviewed him in the first, like, it's been a month. It has like 40,000 views. The average watch time is like 30 minutes. And he's gotten like tons of clients coming his way. Obviously, I'm getting commissions from it.
Right.
So, and that's the day I'm like, damn, I'm good at. The president of Dominican Republic saw the video. And he's like, this guy's good at interview.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm pretty good at this. So it just came down to being good at asking questions, because the answers that you get in life, in the podcast in general, are determined by the questions you ask. If you have good questions, you get a good answer. If you got shitty questions, you get a shitty answer.
What do you consider a good question though? Is it just helping promote their service, or what do you consider a good question?
A good question is how you frame it. So give me an example. Give me a client. Give me an offer.
Okay, let's just say SMMA. So they sell. The guy yesterday, they help a lash artist get more clients.
Okay, lash is like eyelashes.
Yeah, like
right?
in their salon. It's like a salon owner.
Okay, so I would say, okay, so Tanner, what do you say are the 3 biggest mistakes that lash owners make in order to scale their business?
You know,
Yeah.
they don't do this, they don't do that.
Yeah, so like that's one question. Like, so like, what made you feel on your story when you lost everything? How do you build your lash business back up to $1 million when you lost everything? Right, so I just tie everything to their
either strategies or something to their story, so they get to know them, and then they're also getting a lot of value.
Exactly. So and then the podcast is like an hour, something an hour and a half. Right. People are sticking to the entire thing. I have people like watching the podcast twice, like a movie.
Yeah, because the average rate on YouTube, I think, is if they watch 30% of your videos, the average. Yeah, I think. So if you get 100 people on average, they'll watch 30% of the video.
Correct. Like right now, like people are watching like an hour. So now that's like one side. Like the other side is like, obviously when you start a podcast, you need traffic. You need like injection of traffic initially. So what I did well was I interviewed a couple of people that were like big influencers, like Yados, for example. He has stupid traffic. I started the podcast, and mind you, this is by mistake. Like I didn't plan on this being a thing.
Really?
Yeah. It was last year in like August, July. And I started the podcast by mistake. I like went to Jalo, hey, listen, like I'm doing this, and this. I already have a successful business. I think you should be on the podcast. I would love to hear your story. Boom. Right. He goes on there and traffic just spikes. It spikes, but then it goes down.
Did it spike because you were able to tag him, or he shared it?
He shared it. He shared it on one story. On one story. Right. It spiked, but then it went down. But some of the people stayed in with the YouTube algorithm, etc. Now, a couple of weeks after that, I interviewed one of my clients. His name is Robert. This is Robert Kiyosaki in Spanish. His partners are Fernando Gonzalez.
I don't know why.
Yeah, so I have Robert Kiyosaki as a client. Rich Dad Latino in the Spanish division that they have. I'm trying to get
Latino, is that what they call
it? Yeah, that's what the company is called, Rich Dad Latino. But I'm trying to get Rich Dad Company as a client right now. But anyways, so I interview him, and mind you, he has like just it starts picking up like today that one video has like 700,000 views. That one video I posted in October. Yep. And then that one compounded, and then I interviewed Sensei, which has a ton of traffic, and then I interviewed Boom, and then just like snowballed into one thing. I'm like, okay, this is a thing. And when I realized that I could launch offers and experts and people was in December when I interviewed this ecom guy that nobody like knows and has done $700,000 in the last 3.5 months. Just organic.
So if someone's trying to start a podcast, I don't know how much influence maybe you have, maybe you were friends or not, but if they're trying to get these big name individuals, I get the method and it makes total sense. But what if they can't get them, or how would you frame it for them to get them? Is it just persistence? Is it luck? Maybe you work up with smaller people and then get to big people. What would you do?
So I don't consider myself like a podcast expert,
right?
To be honest with you. If somebody's trying to get a big name and they can't, it's probably because you don't have a big enough audience and they're considering not worth their time to be there, which is totally fine. So just you got to put in the work and just build something for yourself. Like, for example, the reason why even Yados accepted to be on my podcast was because he saw what I had built for the last 5 years. Right. He saw who I was. He saw the people that I related with. He saw me going to dinners with this guy and this guy and this guy. He saw like what I did. Even though my Spanish brand was like literally just starting. I started in July. It was nothing. He saw the people that I had on the English side, and it's like, no, this guy is something, right? And that's why I think he decided to go on the podcast. So if like somebody starting from zero, like complete zero, you're not going to be able to attract big names unless you pay for it. So it's a pay to play game if you want to speed up the process, or you become really freaking good at what you do. You build something that's worth talking about, and then these guys will come.
And then the key, I'm assuming, is once you do the podcast, try to cut stuff up into clips or things that they'll use so that you can at least try to invite them to collab, et cetera, and you can pull all the traffic.
Exactly.
That's been interesting. Do you look for people that you find interesting, or do you look more for people that maybe can help the stats? So, for example, I've really found it fun for me to do interviews because I almost view it as a lunch that's mutually beneficial. So people seem I don't get anyone who's said no to me yet for the pod.
But then again, you're Tanner freaking Chidester, right?
I've loved it because I actually went on pods and I enjoyed it so much that just mentally it just stimulates my brain so much that I really enjoy it. You've been in the game 7-8 years, we said, right? So 8 years in business. What are 3 major mistakes that if you could go back and ask your younger self that you would do now? Knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell your younger self not to do? 3 big mistakes, whether it's hiring, training, this course, that course, whatever it may be.
So I'll tell you one, and that is the 3 mistakes that I did in 2018, between 2018 and 2019, that made me lose everything. So 2018, I made my very first million. 2019, I ended up working in a gas station as a cashier here in Miami.
I remember, bro.
I know. It was tough, very tough. And the reason why, and literally like less than a year later, like September 2018, I get the 2 Comma Club.
Yeah.
August 2019, I'm working as a cashier in a gas station. So the 3 things that I did back then, huge mistakes that I'm never doing today again. 1, I didn't focus. So like one thing, focus on one thing. I started like doing like this side projects and side businesses and like all this other stuff that didn't matter. Like that, and that was also completely unrelated to the main business, right? So that's number 1. And I started like spending a lot of money on these dumb projects. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I started hiring people based on future revenue that was going to come in, hopefully.
Meaning what?
So like, for example, like we got, and this is like the other mistake too, is like I got scammed with a $1.2 million contract. Right, the guy signed it and never paid, but I hired all these people, had a freaking lease.
So almost as if, hey, so we're gonna do this deal and I'll pay you in the future, etc. But you didn't get anything down. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Bro. So that. Yep. And
I saw that on a movie. What's that? What's the movie called? The 3 Dads. And they sell the shower kit. What's it called? Anyway,
what are we talking about?
I don't know. There's a movie where it's called The Shower Buddy or something, and they get a deal, and the reason the guy does is he wants to steal their business, so they default on the loan and he takes their entire business because they can't pay for anything.
That's basically what happened.
And that's what happened. Yeah,
that's basically what happened. And then the third thing, obviously, I was spending money like doing dumb shit. It's like renting Lambos and yachts and like partying and this and that. So those 3 mistakes I would say are the 3 things that I would tell my younger self not to do.
So you were in Indiana and then you came to Miami. Do you find it harder for you personally to not spend a lot of money in Miami because there's just more money here and more people are doing it? Or is it just a thing that you would struggle with no matter where you're at? Or
well, in Indiana, it's very hard to spend money. It's just very hard to spend money, even if you want to. Like it's impossible to spend $5,000 a month. It's like you're not gonna do it. Yeah. Like it's literally impossible. Yeah. Like you can go out every night, every like hour of every day, just a new place, and there's not a new places. Like that's it. Like there's nothing in Indiana, zero, and everything closes at 6. So like it's literally impossible to spend money in East Lafayette where I used to live. Yeah. But it is definitely like the living expenses here in Miami is 100% different. So like just baseline, like just to live is like $14,000 a month. Just to live, survive, rent, food, just basic stuff, no going out. It's $14,000 a month. That's a heck of a lot for, I mean, a ton of people, right? Mm-hmm. But that's like baseline where I live right now. And then obviously like you go out and you do this and that and like whatever, then obviously things go up.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I don't tally it, but I want to say at least between rent and other things, it's got to be close to $250,000 a year. It has to, if not more. And I don't even think I'm a super lavish spender. It's just when people hear that number, I go, yeah, about half of that's my rent or more, minimum. And that's a pretty nice place, but it's not overly lavish. If you get an overly lavish place, when I lived at 1,000 a few years ago, I'm closer to $500,000 a year living expenses.
I remember, like out of the 14, half of that is rent.
Yeah, because if I took what I pay here, went anywhere else in the country, it's you're getting what would cost here 15 to 20 grand or more. Yep. Depending. Okay, so there's 3 mistakes you made. Do you have a big team? Do you have a small team? How lean is your team?
Right now, the team we have 12 people. So I don't want to expand. Like that's not counting sales reps. So 12 people on salary, and that's it. So that's all I have.
Yeah, I find that interesting because I've had a super lean team and I've had a big team. And the pros of a small team is you make a lot more profit, but you have to really be involved in the business. Yep. Where I'm at right now is very weird, where I'm actually making less profit because I have so many employees, so many C-suite specifically. Yeah. So if I cut 3 C-suite, I mean, I'd be saving $7,500 a month just from that because of how much they require and pay. But then the downside is I don't have that extra time to do something different. So, you've been in business 8 years. Do you prefer the small lean team where you have, you're a little more involved, but you make more profit? Or would you rather have a bigger team at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about the bigger team. I tried it in 2019 and didn't go well. Yeah. So, I don't think I'll ever not be involved simply because I enjoyed, the what I'm doing. There's ways to automate a lot of things right now today as well. So I don't know, like it depends. It depends on like what the delivery is, what the product is, what are the people doing. But also what I find is you can find really, really great talent outside of the United States, like super good talent. I don't think, I'm not gonna say never, but I don't think I'll ever hire in the same way inside the United States. Like right now, for example, the person that runs my operations is in the Philippines. I pay them $2,000 a month. That same position, and they do an amazing job. That same position will cost me like 15 grand a month in here in the United States.
Yeah, 100%. But that person in the Philippines, they speak English, right? It's
perfectly English and Spanish.
Oh, they speak Spanish and English.
Yep.
And what do they mostly do for you as the operator?
Everything, like literally everything. Like they handle clients, like they do some of this tech stuff. They organize, they create SOWs, SOPs. Like they literally all operations.
Do you think at scale that would turn to a problem? So right now you say your team's 13. If let's say hypothetically you had 50 people, do you think they could still handle it at that level?
I don't know. That's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
Because I think about that all the time because I pay such a large amount, but sometimes I wonder, depending, maybe it's a little easier offer, or maybe if the team isn't as big or whatever.
It definitely depends on the offer too. Like it definitely depends 100% on the offer. Like I'm trying to stay away from the B2B, like done for you B2B, super high end clients where we build out absolutely everything, right? Because that creates a whole lot of complexity.
Well, and the expectations are super high.
Yeah. The benefit that I have though is because I have the podcast. Like it's like for me, it's like immediate, right? The ROI that they get. But I'm also very involved on those, and I'm charging like a lot right now. Wow. I had the last client that I had, and this is funny. He met me through the podcast. He saw the podcast. He's like, okay, I want a competitor. right? I had a competitor on the podcast, and then the other competitor saw the competitor on the podcast, like they're like, I want that, right? And he asked me, okay, like what are you doing with them? And I'm like, hey, listen, like I just explained it, and he was like, all right, I want that. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be 50 G's. He said he took his checkbook. He's like, here. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, interesting. Now the price is 60 next time around, because like it's so valuable when you have an audience that you can push traffic to. You have a platform that you like a media company, and then on the flip side, you have the sales process, the sales systems, and you know what
so
works.
So it's almost a little consulting with
correct
traffic, and obviously almost everyone, no matter where they're at in business, if they're having an issue, they're almost always talking about sales,
correct,
traffic, leads,
exactly,
all those types of things. What's your plan for the next couple of years? Obviously, things can change, but if we were to future pacing, you're 2-3 years in ahead, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? Just keep pushing this business, start a new company? So
my goal right now is just to keep building digital entrepreneur, both English and Spanish. I definitely want to crack the English side like hard. Yeah. Right now it's nowhere near where I think it can be, but Spanish is like just blowing up. So my goal is build Spanish, take over Miami. You're going to see like all the billboards and buses and everything.
Papi Pena.
Yeah. Papi Pena. So that's the goal. Like take over Miami completely on the Spanish and English side, build that business up. And then the software company that we have that has the merchant processing and stuff like that, get people using it. And those are the two main goals. Obviously like that includes growing the podcast, growing the brand, growing the personal brand, and taking everything to like a whole another level.
Yeah. So. And then in terms of the podcasting you're doing, how many podcasts are you doing a week? And talk a little bit about the work, because I think sometimes people talk about doing podcasts and content, and even me, sometimes I forget because of how hard I work in business. I go, oh man, I have to work that hard at the content. And so how many hours per week, how many podcasts are you having? How many people are you having to reach out to?
So right now we're doing one podcast a week. Every Monday we publish one. That's it. Might increase it to two a week. And then we do one podcast on Monday, and then on Thursday I publish a video of myself, right? Just talking to the camera on YouTube. And those are the things that we're doing right now. 2 videos a week. I want to increase that to 3. Eventually, if we can do it successfully every day, it's game over.
But when you say you post a video of you talking, what do you mean? Like a clip?
Like an actual long form 10-minute video, me talking straight to the camera, talking about something, right? Like sales or my own offer or whatever.
Oh, so one podcast a week, one normal video. Correct. That makes sense. Exactly. Okay, got it.
Exactly. And then like what happens, like the podcast fuels everything else.
Yeah, of course, because you're getting the traffic. And I think for everyone listening, something they can take away, and I say this all the time, is you can either get free traffic or pay for it. I would say most people, it's actually easier to learn paid traffic than to do what you're doing, because there's a lot of people, they're just not good on camera.
No,
and they don't want to put time into the content. And you would say, wouldn't you agree that it usually takes longer? I think what's happening with you, most people will see this, and I want you guys to understand this is not normal, what he is experiencing. It's not impossible, but it's harder. I would almost consider you're really good at the content creation, and you enjoy that, right?
Yeah. So let me give you a little bit of context too. I've been doing this thing for 11 years. Like I've been in front of the camera talking for 11 years. That's a very long time.
Yeah, of course.
That's number one. Number two, we launched the offer in Spanish October 20th. We scaled it to $10,000 a day in a month and a half. No ads.
Oh, just YouTube ad revenue?
No. $10,000 a day on a $3,000 course in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So we scaled it like super quick.
That is really good.
So like obviously people hear this and like, hey, whatever. But mind you, again, 11 years doing like in front of the camera talking. You can look them up. You can just pull Josue Pena Fitness. Mm-hmm. You'll see it. Or Elation Fitness. That was
hopefully the toe videos on there where you broke it.
Yeah. And that's one. Second, I've been already built a successful business in English, and this was a second business I started in Spanish. And then third is the market. It's like it's blue. So it's like you combine all three, where it's like you have big experience for a very long time in front of the camera. You also know what works, what doesn't work, what offer works, what doesn't work, the infrastructure that you need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then also you combine it with the market. You put those things together, and it just blows up. So there's some element of luck, but at the same time, it's like somebody that's starting from zero, that's like down the street, I want to start a podcast. I don't think they will be able to do it because they don't have the skill, the expertise, the experience, the knowledge of everything else that I do have when I started it.
And it's even just learning how to communicate better. What I've been trying to do more recently is really watch what I say. And there's even some words I say a lot that I don't like, that I think makes me sound less intelligent. I've noticed that. But I agree to your point. What I find ironic is when I was younger and I didn't have a lot of money, I wanted to make a lot of money quickly so I could have a bunch of things. And then over time, what I started to realize is to get those things, you have to put so much time and effort into your craft. And then by the time I got those things, I didn't want them as much. And I realized that's why most people never get there, because they don't actually want to put a lot of time and effort into becoming an expert at a craft. And it does take a lot of time and effort because you're competing with everyone else. I mean,
Correct.
you're competing against everyone across the world.
Yep.
If people want to find you, Josue, or they want to work with you, whether they speak Spanish or English or Spanglish, where can they go to find you?
Just go to on Instagram at Pena at Pena. That's actually
Not Papi Pena.
No, not Papi Pena. I might have to grab that though. But at Pena, just 4 letters Pena on Instagram, and on YouTube just Josue Pena, or just digital entrepreneur. You'll find me there. In the English side, you'll see the Spanish too. So
yeah, it'll pop up. Well, dude, dope. I'm super glad you came. Super excited to see what you can do. I'm glad things are popping off, and I'm trying to learn Espanol as fast as I can.
For sure, bro. Like when you learn Spanish, we'll have you on the podcast. Hey, listen, like we had like one guy that exposed like 40% Spanish, like Dr. D.
No way.
We had him on the podcast. Like,
Wow.
yeah. And dude, that video had like 18,000 views. Just like shitty Spanish.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks for coming on the pod, and I'll see you next time, yeah?
For sure. Appreciate it.
Cool.